How fucking awesome is that? This little Niffler from the magical world of Harry Potter has turned out absolutely incredible. Now, if you're watching this video, if you haven't guessed it already, this video is specifically about flocking. We are going to be working with medium to large different types of flocking to create this awesome diorama base. So sit back, everybody, as we get out some terrain materials and let's get to crafting. How awesome is that? All right, let's kick off this voiceover here and let's look at this little project. Now, as you can see, it's kind of like in its mid stages of completion. We already have like the overall coat of the Niffler, the face, the eyes, as well as the hands and feet kind of painted out. We also have a lot of that rock texture already created, but the bottom of this clay structure, which is out of creative paper clay, is actually still a little bit wet. And that's due to the fact that it has, zero air contact as it's sitting on the base or that piece of tile that I've been working on with the project. But this video is all about the flocking and the detail work that's going to go over the rock painted texture. So I do have a few containers here of just different types of flocking and organic matters. Let's run through a few of the ones that I may be using in this project. I do have larger pieces of like bark and leaves. I do have some more refined kind of dirt, as well as a little bit of a mid-grade dirt with some kind of like bark texture in it. So I just have a wide range of items that I could potentially use on the project. In all reality, though, I do kind of lean just towards like the finer kind of like types of flocking like this right here. This is like grass that I have from Green World Company. And I also have this like very fine moss texture flocking. We'll probably use that, and I can always kind of tone that with different inks and acrylics if I need to along the way, which I do periodically. To attach a lot of this flocking here, and this is a flocking that I kind of churned up myself. It's a Walmart brand moss. And I put that in a shredder, and I actually just shred my own. It creates a nice mid chunk type of overall fabric there, and it's not as fine as the actual fine flocking that you can order from Amazon. It's a lot more chunky, it's a lot more gritty, and it has a lot larger diversity of sizes of particles in it. So right now what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and go over the base. So originally I had painted the rock texture first, and then I went in and painted the Niffler after the fact as well, and that includes the actual hands and feet. So I did get a little bit of over painting here and there, and I needed to go back and any kind of scuffs or scrapes on the rock base I needed to kind of patch up. And to do that, I just used titanium white, a little bit of burnt umber, and a little bit of Mars black. We're going to go in with a little bit of, mostly, for the most part, I will be using Mod Podge. Now, this is a gloss, clear drying Mod Podge, and I will just go over the rock base, starting off with my finest flocking first, and then we'll start to work up into heavier flockings as we build up these layers. Now, whenever you're putting this on the first layers over that rock base, you just kind of have fun with it, really. Just if you really want to like go out of the way to have moss on one side of the rock or one underface or overface of it, then you can do that. But really, as I just rotate this around, I'm just going to really enjoy the process. This is where the rock really just transforms into something completely different. And then as you add more layers of flocking to it, it just brings up the realism a little bit. Remember that we will be doing a clear coat over this, so any kind of like a flocking that I put on now will have like a textured or a wet look to it. And that will also bring up a lot of glazing and a lot of wet textures over the rocks. But we'll get to that in a separate video, and I'll also kind of showcase that maybe towards the end of this video just a little bit, just so you can kind of get an idea of what it will look like when it's all said and done. So go ahead and sit back, enjoy the music, and let's go ahead and get this light, fine flocking on the base here. I'm being very detail oriented here as far as just trying to get a little bit of that flocking underneath the rolled over rock there. So I plan to make an actual wooden base that is like molded to the shape of the bottom of the rock, but I just will probably do that later on down the road. I'm not doing that in this project. It's not going anywhere. It's going to sit on our living room table for a while, so I'm not really worried about rushing through that portion of the project, just because it's something added extra just to bring up the overall quality of the item a little bit. If I were selling that, I would probably do that before I shipped it off, obviously. I did use a fan brush there, as you saw, just to kind of get off any kind of excess, and I do try to save a lot of that flocking just because I don't want to spend extra money on something when I don't need to. Now we're going to go ahead and roll in with a little bit of dirt. Now this is dirt that I have already baked to perfection. This is the dirt that I had harvested from outside my home in the woods and around the habitat around my house. And this is my organic dirt. I have a video on me collecting dirt from the outside for another project. That was the Goliath bird eater tarantula diorama. You can check that out. It's an okay fun video, just me casually walking around, just talking outside. It's not super popular or anything, but it is kind of like correlating to me going out and finding organic matters and dirts to use in projects. And then I'll bake those in the oven and then saturate them with rubbing alcohol, depending on how like organic they are and how nasty those dirts are, to get them to a fine particle like layers like this. I try to go as fine as I can to begin with, just so I can get some good adherence to that Mod Podge layer. Just be aware that when you do this, though, it's going to leave it very loose. So as you kind of like blow on it or you kind of move it around, dirt can consistently fall off around your workstation. So it's just a messy process. When you're doing any kind of dirt like this, just expect mess. Just have like a vacuum nearby or a little broom, or just be ready with like a damp washcloth to get any kind of dirt up before you go into some like detail painting, and you don't want that dirt just getting into everything. So as we said before, we're just going to continue with the Mod Podge, just moving around the project here, and then we're just going to continuously apply the dirt here. Now I'm trying to make sure that the dirt has cascading effects, so it's kind of like tapered around the edges, so it's just not like mossy rock and then immediately transitions into dirt. You want to have a gradual like ombre effect. That way it has a little bit of realism to it when it's all said and done. Here I'm using the popsicle stick, putting the dirt on there, and I'm just kind of pushing or throwing that underneath the edges of the Niffler. My goal here was that the dirt would be kind of pushed out a little bit around the Niffler's legs and butt and front of the Niffler there. The goal here is that the dirt is kind of like hugging the Niffler, and it's not like it's displaced so much. You want it to make it look like the Niffler is just sitting up on a rock on a little nest with all of its treasures, and the dirt is just going to be there to accent it and make it look a little bit more realistic. It's going to be really cool. Using that handy dandy popsicle stick there just to apply that. I used to have like a little like a teaspoon like measuring spoon that I would use, but I don't even know where that is anymore. So now I just use whatever I have at hand in the studio to get these things done. Pouring the last of that bag out there. I will actually have to harvest some more dirt and then and prep that in the oven. But I did find an additional bag of dirt. It's a little bit thicker grain than what I'm using now. And I do use a little bit of that, but I also do go ahead and bake me another round of dirt. So I do have a whole brand new bag. Now here what we're doing is I'm actually saturating this. My spray bottles were really acting up here. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to lie about it. I left like glue and stuff in the bottles, and the straws got clogged, and it's just a mess. But I got it to work good enough to work here. So this is an actual brown wash. It is a mixture of colors, and every time I add new colors to it, it changes the overall tone and hue of it. It is generally dark. It's going to darken out all of that dirt. And my goal is that when I come in with later on layers of dirt, that it will just intensify. So you'll see that darker dirts underneath, the brighter, higher burnt umber dirts over top of it. So now what we can do is we can begin the process of applying a little bit of a thicker grain. Now this is the flocking that I had purchased at Walmart. At the time, I just could not, I needed flocking quickly. and I did not have time to wait on it to be delivered from Amazon. I mean, like days. Like, I didn't have days. I needed to get a project done immediately. So the only option that I had is I had to buy it locally. There's not a whole lot of like hobby shops that sell flocking locally. There's, they sell a few versions of it at Michael's. Sometimes if they have it in stock, it's the very refined powder version, the one we used first, but they don't have anything thicker. And I needed a little bit thicker texture like what we have here. It's like mid-grade. But the only place I could find something similar was at Walmart. And I was like, oh, all right, well, I'll just buy this big old bag of like fake moss from Walmart. And then what I did is I put it in a shredder and I shredded it up. And Lord have mercy, what is it? It's just a great texture. So you can go out and you can actually buy this type of moss from Amazon or Green Stuff World if you would like to. I highly recommend you get it from Green Stuff World if you can, because it's such a better quality than what I have here. I'm not saying this isn't great. It is great, but I'm saying is if you have the opportunity to get it from Green Stuff World, do it. Go out of your way, order a bunch of flocking from them, and it will last you a long time. So it being churned up means that it has a lot of different sizes and texture. And that just means that when you're applying that to your Mod Podge, your clear coat base, to get it to adhere to the rock formation or what you're attaching it to, you get a lot of those refined particles underneath or filtering through some of the large pieces, and it really gives you a great overall coverage. Instead of just going in with just a thick or a mid chunk, it's really good to have a wide variety of that in there. It really works out great. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm using a air dry clay. Now this is creative paper clay. Specifically, I designed this project to use a lot of their clay in this. This entire diorama was sculpted with a creative paper clay. And it is an absolute fabulous clay to work with. Of course, if you want an oven baked clay, you can do that as well, but this was all air dry, absolutely phenomenal. They sent me a care package not too long ago, and I dedicated myself to creating an awesome playlist with their product, so it's very fun to do so. So here what I'm doing is I'm building this creative paper clay little base here for the coins. Now at the time, this is actually the rough cut galleons that I had created and hand painted to details. There is a individual video on me creating those rough cut galleons. And I molded this so that that little galleon set would sit down into this clay base, and then I would be able to dirt over that and create the texture around it. It'll make sense as we work through this process. However, I did come back later on down the road and I created a clean cut, not a rough cut, but a clean cut set of galleons, and they have a lot more definition. So just be aware that there are two separate videos sitting out there. You may be in the playlist where you're finding this in the Magical Beast or in the Niffler Diorama Project playlist, and you'll see those videos coming up either before or after this video. So this is dried. I put a Mars Black base on that just to make sure that none of that white is peeking through any of those dirt layers as we continue building up the dirt. And that also includes the front. So as you can see there, I did put some gold rocks in the actual creative paper clay around the front of the legs. Here is just me showcasing the dried dirt that I had done. I had to make me another batch of dirt. And that is just me using that. Here's those rocks as I spoke of just a moment ago, and I'm going to go over this very liberally with a layer of Mod Podge, being very careful not to completely cover up those little gold nuggets that are kind of like inset into the dirt. The goal here is that you see the little coin on the left-hand side of the leg. It's at an angle. There's rocks and the little gold nuggets in the dirt. As I apply dirt to this, it makes it look like they're like nested into the dirt, like the Niffler's protecting them or sitting on like a nest of gold or trinkets and treasures. Very cool. I did make an individual, very fun video of me painting those rocks in gold layers. It is very simplistic, but it is a fun process, you guys. Absolutely fun. And I guess that could be considered a flocking or a terrain type of video because I did inset those into the terrain itself. It's supposed to be very simple, very kind of hidden away, but they're there if you're looking at enough detail. So we're just gonna go ahead and take our time, just build up some of these dirt layers here, and then we'll let those dry overnight before we start any other processes. One of those processes is I'm gonna use a watered down Mod Podge liquid, and that's gonna kind of like set the outside of the dirt into place. And I'll use a turkey baster injector to do that. Very handy, very recyclable, and it works out quite well. So sit back and enjoy as we go ahead and get these layers locked into place. Looking pretty good so far. Now I will use E6000 adhesive for some of these smaller pieces. Now my wife is the one who wanted me to create this project. So although I have created a ton of these little treasures to add to the base to create like an actual mound of treasure, she wanted it very simplistic overall. And I plan eventually to make a small vial of potion that might be spilling down and off the rocks. But at the time of completion, my wife does not know if she wants that or not. So I may make that later on down the road just for fun. However, I don't know if she wants that right now. But however, at the time of this video, we are going to use a few of the two-part epoxy casted gems that we had created. One of those being this like rectangle little emerald here, and that's going to be just kind of sitting there. I'm going to cover a portion of it in dirt, and again, it's going to look like those gems or little crystals. Like there's a red crystal there, like a ruby color. It's going to be inset into the dirt, same as those coins that we created out of the foam XPS. All right, so as we kind of use the fan brush here just to brush off any massive, like, pieces that really just aren't locked in, we are going to be coming in and attaching the galleons here. Now, these are the second set that I had created, and we're going to be using E6000 to set these down into that groove that I had created out of the Creative Paper Clay. And I'm applying a little bit of Mod Podge between those two stacks so I can go ahead and put the dirt in there easily. So just be aware that this is the second stack. These are the clean cut galleons out of XPS foam. And I, of course, painted them to perfection. Again, there are two videos sitting out there, one for rough cut, one for clean or smooth cut. and they were both very fun. Anytime I use the proxon saw in a project, it's bound to be fun. As you can see, we do have those little pearls set into the dirt there. Makes it look like they're just kind of nested away into there. Making sure the dirt goes between those, and there's a little bit of dirt on the bottom, kind of a lip or a rim of those coins. It just brings up the realism a little bit, having some of that dirt sitting there. Here's that handy dandy turkey baster here. We're just going to apply a washed out version of the Mod Podge. And you can do this as many times as you feel like, as long as the dirt just doesn't shift anymore. Obviously, it does take more layers because you are watering that down, but it does really lock in the dirt that you're creating here. You just put it on as many as you need to, and it will create just a nice shelling effect over the dirt. You can also use that, as you can see, I use the needle or injector right there to push dirt in different directions if you want to do that. And it's just supposed to be just a nice relaxing process. I'm trying not to let any of that drip over the edges of my rock, because at this point, as you can see, it does have a little bit of glisten to it. I had already created that clear coat layer over the rock and some of the flocking. Here is a little bit extra flocking here. I'm coming in, I'm kind of blending some of that fine, refined flocking into the dirt that I have added recently. And then that way it makes it look like that dirt was already there when the original flocking was put on the rocks themselves. So some of that flocking on the rocks is locked in with the Rust-Oleum clear coat. Some of it is fresh. Alrighty, so we're putting that mid chunky on there as well, and we're just kind of applying just a few details here and there. So the pearls, the little gems are kind of in place. We've got a lot of the coins put where they need to be in the recessed dirt areas, and we also have those painted gold rocks in place. So there's the last coin there. We're going to put another coin underneath the tail right there. Now remember, there's an air gap underneath that tail. So if you look under there closely enough, you can kind of see there's another coin up and under the tail there. Just kind of cool. And we're going to start to work into a little bit thicker flocking here. Now these are actual flockings that I had bought from Michael's. It's just a small bag, and it has a variety of different colors and shapes and densities of flocking moss. So we're going to go ahead and use E6000. We're going to apply a gentle layer of that over that wet Mod Podge base, and then we're going to go ahead and put these into place. It's not a whole lot, right? You only want enough just to bring up the realism just a little bit. So just have enough in there to kind of break up just the small kind of layers of flocking and dirt. And you just want to make it feel a little bit more natural, right? So you're just using enough just to kind of bring some of that vegetation up and away from what the base is flat, you know, right? So you just want to build up those layers and just make it look a little bit realism. See how I apply that around the pearl there? When you do that, it accents that pearl, and it kind of accents the coins as well, and it makes it look like that's coming out from underneath the Niffler's butt. Applying a little bit around the feet there. You can also use flocking like this to cover up any kind of like small imperfections if you want to. Making sure that some of that's coming from behind those gold coins, and that green just really pops against that gold. Trying to leave the top of it very fluffy. So actually the only parts that's attached to the actual base is the bottom of that flocking. I'm trying not to attach any to the Niffler itself. That way, if I have to replace it later on down the road, then you can easily tear that flocking off and then just replace it with new if you need to. What are you doing, Mr. Niffler? Why are you holding on to that flocking? He's a cheeky little booger, isn't he? Now, of course, we're not done quite yet with the actual Niffler itself. We got one more massive treasure to add to him, and it's one that I really did enjoy. Putting a little bit of that Mod Podge wash over some of those layers of larger flocking there in bushes or shrubbery. And then what we'll do is we're going to get the Niffler's pearl necklace placed into position. Like I said before, I was originally going to add a kind of a elixir of Felix Felicis elixir of gold to the diorama, but I'm going to hold off on that for a little bit. We'll make a return to that if we ever do that. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and get the pearl necklace that we created kind of wrapped around the Niffler here. It's going to add a little bit of just diversity of color here, and it's going to really pop against that blue and purple color shifting folk art paint. Now, this video is focusing on the base. What do you think, guys? Very fun. We used a few different layers of flocking. Of course, we already had the rock painted to perfection, and you will see that in the full-length video when we were just blasting through all of that awesome content. I love the little resin and as well as the larger flocking color changes in the overall project. Not too many gems, just enough, and a lot of gold coins. Looks awesome to me. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. Later.